Hello, everybody. Welcome to this Ski Chat special where we will be discussing how has COVID affected the ski industry and how has Brexit affected the ski industry. My name's Matt Bramall. Welcome to Bramski Vlogs. If you are new to this channel, I've spent the last 3 years working in seasonal jobs in 4 countries around the world. My passion is the mountains, especially the great sport of skiing. Now, before I introduce tonight's expert panel, our guests this evening, just a reminder that we are going live on Facebook and also on YouTube tonight. So it would be great to hear from those who are watching on those platforms. So feel free to say hello, to say where you are, and also to send your questions in, and I will read those out whilst we are live, and we'll get our panel to answer them. Also, don't forget to like this video, like the Facebook page, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel. This is certainly the most challenging period the skiing industry has faced in my time being alive. For many, the mountains are a week's getaway to escape the stresses and bores of life back home. But for many, the mountains are their home. It's their office and their livelihood. Resorts, towns, businesses of all kinds, and seasonal workers will have been affected badly by this continuing travel restrictions, bringing tourism to a halt. Tonight, we're going to hear from some of those who live, breathe, and work in this amazing industry. Firstly, let me introduce Andy Rose. Andy is the owner of Snow Camps Europe, which is based in Kaprun, Austria. Austria, along with many parts of Europe, enjoyed phenomenal amounts of snow in December. Locals, day trippers have been able to use the lifts in Austria, but with hospitality remaining closed as we head into spring, some resorts are operating limited programs to reduce the financial cost. Now, a former neighbor of Andy is in fact my next guest, Rob Moe. Now, Rob is an area manager in the Dolomites for a big tour operator, and he also worked in the Susa Valley. For months, he had been in limbo as the Italian government continued to delay the opening of lifts this year, and he has since returned home to the UK. He's here to talk about his personal opinions and also his experiences, some of which he has been blogging. Alex and Carla are based in the British hotspot resort of Maribel. Based in the heart of the Three Valleys in France, one is a resort manager and the other is a part-time chalet host, but also works as a full-time freelancer. Whilst locals are allowed to travel to the mountains for holidays, the lifts remain shut. Normally, tens of thousands of international tourists would be flogging each week to the French Alps, but many towns have been left deserted. So with time on their hands, they've started a podcast that celebrates everything about the mountain lifestyle. Alex is at the core of operating Global Season Air Network. It's a group that aims to connect aspiring seasonal workers with employers, as well as providing other services to improve the season air experience. Their own Facebook group has now amassed a massive total of more than 12,000 members. And finally, Charles Owen. Charles is the director of seasonal businesses in travel who represent over 200 outbound British travel and service companies. They operate throughout the summer and the winter holiday seasons. Most are SMEs and all are British businesses. They had been lobbying throughout the Brexit negotiations to protect the ability of British workers to operate for short periods in the EU countries. So we say welcome to everybody. Hello. Hi. Well, listen, thank you very much to all of you for taking the time to get involved with this. I know it's a very difficult time for all of us, but we're all very passionate creatures. I know that from all the work I can see you guys doing. Feel free, guys, to have input at any time throughout this discussion. There's going to be no Jackie Weaver antics on my little chat tonight, that's for sure. But welcome to anyone who is watching on Facebook or YouTube. Feel free, as I said, to get your questions in at any time. We've already got Georgia Charity from Maribel. She said hello, so we've already got a couple of them there. So great to have you on board. Let's get started. I'm really eager to get the views of actually what's going on the ground, like what's it like in resorts and what's it been like for businesses. So Andy, look, let's start with you because you live in Austria and you've been there from start to finish this season. Just kind of give an overview of what life has been like and what the scenario is that people are facing.
So, life, yeah, life's been kind of boring and dull, to be honest, because obviously we've got no tourists. And even though we sometimes maybe complain about the tourists, we do love them, and we need them to keep us in employment. So, pretty much the resorts are empty. They're like ghost towns. We can ski. However, going skiing on empty mountains isn't as good as it sounds because again, we need them tourists there to enable us to work. And so we've got an atmosphere and resort. So the resorts basically feel very, very flat. So we can ski. I've been splitting my time between two areas: one Kaprun, where we are based, and then also the Wörthersee in Upper Austria. And it's funny because Kaprun is a very big name resort with along with Zalem and a very big lift area, now 418 kilometers, but it's empty. It's so quiet. Where I go to the Wörthersee where there's only 22 kilometers of piste, and it's actually quite busy. However, if there's 800 cars in a car park, probably 600 of those cars or those people are actually touring. So there's still no lift queues. So the actual ski resort as we would know it is still empty. But if you wanted to watch hundreds of people walk up a hill, you could. So it's a bit strange. Let's just say that. And obviously, nothing is open other than the supermarket. Some of the shops have just reopened, but no one's really got any money to go shopping because no one's been working since the summer. So yeah, it's strange, very, very strange.
Andy, can I ask you a question?
Okay.
Where are all those people coming from? Because aren't there travel restrictions in Austria?
And this is the thing in Kaprun, there it is only locals, and as we both know, Kaprun's a village of 3,000 inhabitants that then swells massively in the winter. So Kaprun is actually empty, and there are very few people skiing. But the Wörthersee it's not a big name resort. It's a village area, let's say, albeit it's 10 kilometers away from the nearest village, but it's locals from the surrounding area. So it's people from Windisgarten, people from Lietzen, people from other small pockets that just drive in each day to ski. And because the kids have only just gone back to school, a lot of kids were up there, a lot of families have been up there most days. But again, it's still nowhere near as busy as it would be. Kaprun, for instance, they report that they're 90% down. The Wörthersee is 65% down. So it's not as bad as some of the bigger resorts, but it's still pretty bad. But yeah, the people are just internal people.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry. Finish what you're saying there, Andy.
Yeah, so most of the people are just internal people. You do see the odd car, the odd Dutch car, the odd Czech car. I saw a Bulgarian one yesterday. And those are people, they seem to either they got in before lockdown, came back in force, or they've got second residencies. So they've been able to get in with quarantine, with negative test, with special dispensation, let's say.
Yeah. Rob, talk to us about what life was like in Italy when you were there, because Italy, is probably, along with France, the two countries I feel most for in terms of their ski community, because they have just been kept on the fence throughout this entire winter. They've been constantly they've got their hopes raised and thought there's a chance it's going to happen in a few weeks, and then it gets to that point, and then it turns out they go, actually, we're going to leave it a few more weeks, and they've it's sort of stop start, but they've never really been able to open. So just talk to what it's been like for you.
Well, I mean, I had to go out before the new year to escape any Brexit restrictions about working in Italy, and we were optimistic about the chances of having some sort of season in December, but obviously I got a bit more pessimistic as things went on. Overall, I think Italy, my experience certainly coming back to the UK now, is that Italy's taken the whole pandemic a lot more seriously. The travel restrictions in Italy are incredibly strict. Italy's divided into various regions. Where I was in the Dolomites, I was in Trentino. You couldn't move away from Trentino, and locally you couldn't move out of your own commune, and the police would stop people leaving the village and question them as to where they were going, and you had to have a really good reason to get out of your local village. The locals where I was in Canazei, in Val di Fassa, were very pessimistic from day one once I got there, that there was going to be no ski season going on that year, despite the fact they kept giving us dates when the lifts would open. I think it went from sort of the 15th of January to the 15th of February, and now maybe to, I think they've given up pretty much completely. But the locals certainly never thought anything was going to open. They were pretty sure that there wasn't going to be a season for them. That said, there was some ski touring going on. Like Andy said, we had that, but it wasn't busy because it was just locals, absolute locals, who were being able to do it. So I went ski touring, saw about 4 people. So it's nice. They kept bashing the slopes because they needed to keep the ski conditions there, just in case they were able to open, because if they let that go, they wouldn't get it back. But yeah, a lot of pessimism. They were able to open the bars towards the end of my stay in Fassa, but then very strict timings. They could only open until 6 p.m. and there was a general curfew between sort of 10 o'clock at night and 5 a.m. in the morning, when you couldn't go anywhere. You had to be inside. So things like that, they kept it very strict. And it's a big contrast coming back to the UK, where you kind of think that people aren't really taking it that seriously.
Let's go to Maribel. I mean, girls, I spoke to you just a couple of weeks ago now, and obviously you gave some indication to it then. But I mean, what's the latest like? Because if I recall, since we last spoke, a bit like with the same way as Italy, you guys were given a little bit of hope again that things might open up. But I understand your cases are still quite stubbornly high in France.
Yeah,
and they seem to be increasing a little over here. Like Rob, we have curfew over here now, so we have to be home between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. We're not allowed to be out unless for kind of good reason. Yeah, and I mean, we're not, there's no hope of, and I think Charles will probably back us up here. I think there's no hope of the slopes opening now.
Yeah, I think we did the same situation. We did have a bit of hope, and we thought the date kept getting pushed back. And I think now we've kind of accepted that we're not going to, the lifts aren't going to open. But yeah. Resort is kind of open. You're allowed to tour up and ski down. And we've seen a big influx of people in the last couple of weeks, actually, for French half term. So it's actually quite strange seeing like the ghost town that we've had for the past like 6 months, all of a sudden having people here. But that is only the French people. So there's no one else is allowed in, obviously, because of the travel restrictions.
And unlike, so I actually flew over the Three Valleys yesterday, and I kind of got an insight into what each kind of resort within the Three Valleys were up to. And Courchevel have almost bashed kind of a lot of their slopes, whereas in Maribel there's been no upkeep pretty much.
Yeah, a little bit, but not much. Yeah,
not much. So it kind of seems like the Maribel Alpina have kind of given up a little bit for this season. And yeah, I guess they're just hoping for next season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive cost.
Yeah.
I was going to say, all I've seen is it looks like people have sort of bashed from the wrong point down to showdown, and then it looks like, and there's
and it's pretty much the same, probably down towards Village also in Maribel, just like basically tracks from where people have been sledging.
Yeah, sledging tracks.
Oh yeah, that's a bit of a walk just for a sled.
Yeah, Alex and Charles, I'll come back to you in just a second, but I just want to pull this up to Andy, because Michelle has said, I didn't think that there were any travel restrictions in Austria, ? I've got friends in Sol who are traveling out to Gerlos, etc., to ski for a change of scenery. Do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, that's correct. There are no internal travel restrictions in Austria. I think Rob was meaning are people coming across the border. There are a couple of exit restrictions at the moment in the Tyrol and Zillertal now. So if you want to leave the Tyrol, you have to have a negative test. And if you want to leave the Zillertal, you have to have a negative test. But there are no internal travel restrictions. And going back to Rob's question, where were the people coming from? A lot of the people over half term, as the girls have just said, there was an influx in Maribel. We had an influx as well in half term. And a lot of them were just day tourists from Vienna on the train. train into Leeds and bus to the slopes, ski all day, and then bus and train back. So no travel restrictions in Austria other than the exit restrictions from a couple of places that are suffering from the South African mutation.
But Andy, am I right in thinking you can't stay somewhere that isn't your own domicile?
No overnight stays. No, I can't rent my apartment to anybody, whether they are Austrian inside the country or someone outside the country. All the hotels are closed, all private accommodation is closed, pensions, everything's closed. No overnight stays, just day trips. But it seems to be surprising the number of people who know people who they can stay with, because you can, two households can meet. Yeah.
I mean, you touched actually, Andy, then on a couple of obviously different types of people from different nationalities that you've maybe seen, like number plates wise, and this will feed into a question to Alex in a second. But I actually had a colleague of mine, well, a former colleague of mine who I know, and he's in Seoul at the moment, actually in Austria. And he'd been there before the deadline. You know, like many of the seasonal workers who are so passionate about doing the job, they will find any way possible to get out to the mountains. And a lot of people still didn't actually know before Christmas realistically what was going to happen. And so people thought, well, I've got to try and get out before this Brexit deadline. Anyway, they got out there. But apparently about 2-3 weeks ago, they were getting stopped in the streets by authority figures and saying, should you be here? And it was just because they were walking around with a non-Austrian accent, British or otherwise. So
there was the case of there was 96 people in St. Anton that got fined because they were seen to be there illegally. Now, some people came in. As Rob said, he had to get into Italy to be within the Brexit kind of scenario. So they got in early. They did expect their jobs to start because we were all told that resorts would open on the 24th. We were all told we would be able to work. And then other restrictions came in. So especially people who traveled over to be ski teachers, they couldn't then work. Should they have been able to stay or should they have left is the question. They thought they could stay there. The police were going around saying they couldn't stay. To be honest, I think it was just a money-making scheme for the police. To be honest, they've not had a lot of other things to do during lockdown, so they've got to get a bit of revenue in somehow.
Yeah, Alex, let's get on to Global Season Air Network because you guys are normally throughout the season. You work and loads of people I've seen in your Facebook groups. Even now, there's people still wanting to try and find ways and ask advice about doing seasonal work. What has it been like? What's the sort of the feedback you've had from people within your group and how are they all feeling?
I think that most people are pretty disappointed, obviously, that it's a write-off. Essentially, is what happened, especially in France, and as the guys have said you've said it in Italy, and obviously we can't go. Brexit is another thing that's just muddying the water, and everyone. I'd say at the moment, most people aren't worried about whether they're going to get to go skiing or not this winter. They want to know how easy it's going to be for them to go skiing next winter. There are people who just go out and live there in the winter and then go and do their own thing, and they want to know if they're going to be able to do that if they don't have the backing of a big tour operator or an SME helping. I think that's the main sort of question, is not are we going to get to go skiing? That's, I think, most of the stuff that's coming in is what's it going to be like next winter? So we've just been pushing blog posts and emails out to all of the guys that are subscribed to further than just the Facebook group, pushing the emails and stuff out to people, trying to give a breakdown of how each different country's rules are gonna be, and it's pretty simple. It's a case of if the quota's not full and if you've got a job, then you'll be able to. It looks promising.
Yeah, Charles, Charles, you've sort of obviously sat there and heard all of this, and you've got a large amount of businesses that are involved within SBIT. I mean, what state are they in? What are they saying to you?
Well, first of all, thanks very much for having us on. unfortunately, there's a few less companies in SBIT now this year than there were 12 months ago. As a result of the COVID pandemic, a number of them have gone into administration. I think people kind of forget a little bit. In the UK, we're into our third lockdown. The UK travel industry is still in its first lockdown that started on March the 14th, when the European ski slopes started closing down. And immediately at that point, virtually, there were, for instance, in France, there were 30,000 skiers in France on the 14th of March when the lockdown happened, that the UK travel industry needed to emergency repatriate back to the UK. They then followed up by repatriating about 10,000 staff from France, and this was all done within about 3 or 4 days. Because at that stage, and you're probably going back and remember the panic at the time, we weren't sure if actually there was going to be complete shutdown of the borders, stopping transport between towns in France. So then the industry needed to immediately get on and reorganize hundreds of thousands of holidays, give out large amounts of refunds at a time when the UK was shutting down. So most of the staff were working from home. And since then, there's been virtually no revenue coming in for nearly on 12 months now. So it's no exaggeration to say that there are large amounts of the industry that are financially on their knees at the moment. And unfortunately, I think you're right. The prospects in quite a few of the European countries for any skiing this season actually look quite slim and bleak. So yes, it's been. I don't think anybody in the industry can remember a time anything anywhere close to this.
Yeah, I mean, Charles, what sort of engagement have you guys had with government officials? Because it just seemed that like travel as a whole industry has just been left at the bottom of the pile, and just people within positions of power don't want to touch it.
I don't think that's quite fair on the governments. I think we have good and regular conversations with the UK government, with the French government as well. That's where most of our focus is. Yes, we have been arguing, and we haven't got the kind of sectorial support that we would have liked, and then that the industry actually really needs. But there have been a number of schemes that have worked. They've been the general ones: the furlough scheme, the CBILS, the business loans. What we're pushing for now is that we know that as an industry, there is large amounts of pent-up demand, whether it's in the summer businesses or the winter businesses. And we need the government now to help us so that we can actually take advantage of that and actually allow a lot of people to go on their holidays, to book their winter holidays and come certain that actually they're going to have the companies that can support them and take them over there and stuff. So that's our main conversations with the government at the moment now for restart and recovery. Well, one thing that's not very well known, after the 2008-2009 financial crisis, tourism accounted for 1 in 4 new jobs in the recovery. And so that's really what we're trying to stress now, that actually, if you give us the support, government, we can rebuild and we can help actually come out of the COVID pandemic.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
How do you think for the guys who have obviously lost their winter and are looking at potentially what I don't know, what's your take on companies employing people from the UK in future winters? Is it something that you think we're going to see less of, and we're going to need more people with EU passports, or is it something that you guys are fighting for?
Well, that's probably straying into the Brexit thing a little bit. We're going to come on to it a bit later, aren't we, Matt?
Yeah, it is. But I'm eager to get the thoughts of everybody here, actually, of how, how travel and particularly skiing has been handled during this pandemic. I mean, this is obviously going to be a bit biased, but I feel that the ski industry has been unfairly singled out. I think it's been made to be seen as some sort of COVID super spreader, and that anybody, wanting to even think about going skiing this year is seen as some sort of selfish, pompous, it doesn't affect me, that type of whole thing, but I think anybody connected to the industry knows, as we've already touched on here, how much money it generates for governments in taxes, in income, how many jobs it creates, how much it benefits local economies, how much the sport benefits people's physical and mental well-being. It's outdoors. It's the total opposite from being in a crowded supermarket. So from where you've all been, how do you think countries have handled it? Who wants to go first? Girls.
So I think you're right. I think we have been singled out as an industry. But I mean, out here in Mirabel, Charles was out here in the summer, but we kind of went almost back to normal out here in the summer. So the lifts were all running, people were out mountain biking and stuff. And okay, the numbers were a little bit high, but they didn't spike dramatically. The spike came in the coronavirus numbers here around about kind of September, October time again. And that's when everybody was kind of back in their cities, back in crowded areas. So I think that the proof is kind of in the pudding. In the summer, when everyone was outside, spread out all over the mountain and stuff, there wasn't the same spike in numbers. And so I do think that we should have had at least a chance to prove that it wasn't the case. I know that obviously Austria got a bit of a bad name when the full coronavirus thing kind of first kicked off, but we all know that it was kicking around even in Mirabel. It didn't get publicized the same way that it did when it happened in Austria.
Yeah, look, I don't necessarily see that skiing has been picked on particularly. When the first lockdown happened, yes, it hit the ski resorts, but it hit the whole of Europe at the same time.
Yeah.
And the sort of second stroke third wave has just coincided with the ski season. And when you've got pretty much national knockdowns in a lot of the countries where the skiing is going on, I mean, you're not going to expect skiing to be able to take place when you look at all the other things that they've actually stopped. And look, we all know skiing is outdoors, but the concern isn't people on the mountains. The concern is what happens for the people in the resorts that are sharing the buses, that are sharing the lifts. In my mind, hopefully, this has been a massive wake-up call to the ski lifts and the entire industry that we have to do more to demonstrate without a shadow of a doubt that we can make everything to do with skiing COVID secure. Because at the moment, where my mind is very, very much focused on is the 21-22 season. And I think it is... look, COVID-19 is now endemic in the world. It's not going to disappear. It's not going to go away. We've had fantastic news with the vaccines and the rollouts, but even with the most optimistic vaccine rollout projections, there is still a chance that there are still going to be restrictions next year. Therefore, we have to make sure that we can guarantee to the regional authorities and to the ski holidaymakers that want to come over that we can make resorts as safe as they can be. And that's got to be the focus.
Okay, so Charles, my question to that is that, okay, so what is it that they're looking for? Because let's look at Austria and Switzerland, who, ignored what France and Italy and Germany all said, where they said, right, we want a European-wide agreement, which basically meant we want you all to just not run your lift. And Austria and Switzerland said, well, no, thank you. Do you know what? We're going to look after our own tourism. We're going to deal with ourselves. And Austria has done things very well, but I think it, despite the headline that tried to be created around the Verbier situation, Switzerland, I've seen videos where everybody who comes out of a gondola car that gondola car is then sprayed with some, massive disinfectant. A very renowned university in Switzerland did a study that proved that you were something like 10 times less at risk catching the virus inside a gondola or on the slopes. Not to mention that when we come round next year, you'd like to think that pretty much all of the British people have been vaccinated, and that hopefully a lot of the Europeans have now been vaccinated. So what are they looking for? I mean, après ski has been banned. It will probably never return to the same levels it's been for at least 4 or 5 years. So where's the uncertainty? Where's the line, if you understand what I'm saying?
Well, that's where we've got to really engage with the national government to actually understand where it is, and to really work with the scientific community to understand where the risk points are, and to therefore demonstrate that we can do in the resorts, in the businesses, everything that is required. I have no doubt that as an industry, we can do this. One of the things why a lot of us love actually working in the travel industry, you have incredibly good problem solvers in there. Anybody that's gone through a snowmageddon and tried to work out what you do with 50 people on a coach when you can't get them anywhere close to actually where they're meant to be sleeping for a night, you just get very good at coming up with solutions. The industry has that in its DNA. So I just view this as a massive challenge, but the right way to solve it, engage with the governments, engage with the scientific communities, and just prove what we all, I think, inherently know, that we can make skiing a very safe activity and all the ancillary stuff that goes alongside it. Because it's not just the ski lifts. I mean, I run European pubs. We've Jack's Bar, the Capinia chain of cocktail bars. I need those to be open. Skiers want those to be open so that they can go and have the fun. Yes, après ski might not be exactly the same as it's been, but to be honest, that's probably a good thing. It's good to change stuff around, but people will still want to come off the slopes and have fun down in the bars and see bands and stuff, I hope.
Okay, right. I can see one person nodding their head. I can see a few people having a drink in spirit of après, and I can see someone shaking their head. I'm going to go to Andy first, purely because actually there's a question related to Austria from Tim Russell. And Tim says, can I ask how the Austrian government has supported businesses, i.e. hotels and pensions during this period? And then we'll go to Rob and the girls afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll answer Tim's question in a second if that's okay, but I just wanted to follow up on a couple of things that have just been said. Was skiing singled out? I don't think so. I think if we were all winter sun experts, we would also feel that we've been singled out, because winter sun hasn't happened either. The other thing, Austria have shown that they can operate their areas. Yes, but why did Austria operate their areas? It wasn't, I don't believe, to keep internal tourism ticking over. It was, if they said to the ski areas, you can open, they didn't need to pay them any compensation.
I was going to ask, did it make any economic sense for them to open?
Well, no, this is the thing, because if the average resort is 90% down, no one has made any money. They're bleeding money left, right, and centre. And this is why a lot of the areas have only operated partial lifts. Some of the areas have only operated on weekends. Most of the areas opened most of their area over February, but we're now seeing them reduce down again to weekend only, to Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Capri, I think there's 3 or 4 lifts operating in the week. So even at that operational level, they're still losing 90% week on week. If the government had said, no, you have to stay closed, the government would have had to compensate them. So I don't think it had anything to do with, let's let the Austrians go skiing, let's let them go on day trips. It was, we can't afford to pay them 80% of last year's turnover, because it would be billions and billions and billions. Which goes on to Tim's question. The Austrian government have been supporting businesses. Hotels are being paid 80% of last year's turnover for why they have to be closed. And again, we believe if they do let the hotels open at the end of February, which it was alluded to at first, but then they're now saying it might not be till Easter. But even if they say you can open at Easter, none of the hotels we believe will actually open until around about the 8th or 10th of May, because there's nobody to go into those hotels if they open, and they're going to lose their compensation from the government because they are allowed to open, but then they've got to staff it. They've got to fill the fridges with food. They've got to fill the bar with beer. They're going to have no people until May, and that's if the borders reopen. And at the moment, you can't cross the borders. So, Tim, yes, businesses have been supported. Some businesses more than others, and some businesses haven't. We've not been supported at all because apparently, because we are a reseller of services, we are not directly impacted. But the people whose services we sell have been impacted. So we've had no support whatsoever. On my rental side for my apartment, I've had a small amount of support of replacement of rental income that's been lost, but nothing that really helps. So yes, they have helped some and they haven't helped some. So
right. Girls, just sort of any thoughts on those last few points?
No, I think also we do have to bear in mind that obviously skiing is a high risk sport, and so there are going to be kind of injuries left, right, and centre. And of course, we do need to think about the hospital numbers with COVID as well in the area. That is one of the biggest factors around here to why our lifts are not opening, is because those beds have been taken up with those with COVID, and so we wouldn't be able to take people to hospital. And so that is something that we also need to think about. I know that obviously the winter sun holidays have been affected, but they don't come with the same risk factor as what I guess the ski holidays do come with.
Yeah. Okay. Well, listen, we've got close to sort of 40 people who I can see that are watching this live at the moment across the platform. So hello to you all. So far, we've had questions come in from Michelle and also Tim. George has also popped up and said hello. Wherever you are around the world right now, feel free to say hello. Let us know where it is that you're coming in from, and also any questions that you've heard. We're talking at the moment about how COVID has impacted the industry, and I guess I want to start as turning towards the future, because this week, yes, we're in our third lockdown here in the UK, but the vaccine is rolling out at an incredible pace. Luckily, cases and hospitalizations and deaths are on a downward curve, whilst there is still a long way to go. And the latest announcement that Boris Johnson made on Monday said that they would not sort of look at easing international travel until sort of May the 17th at the earliest. There is due to be a report from a travel task force on April the 17th. Hi there, Carl from Belfast. We've also got Bev, who is from Surrey. Can't wait to be back in Austria and do some snowboarding. Bev, great to hear from you. And Carl, Bev, where would you go in Austria if you could? Feel free to let us know. So Boris has made his announcement, and he said that there's going to be a report on the 12th. But what I found really surprising was shortly after making that announcement, this news comes out and says that holiday bookings have skyrocketed. 600% apparently, I heard in one figure, which I was surprised about. And I wonder how many of those are just bookings being passed over from, last year. But I guess this might be questions directed towards Andy and also Charles, but everyone else can chime in as well. Is that with that news, I mean, can people be confident in booking holidays?
Yeah.
I don't think they can be confident in it, but I like the optimism.
I think that I've spoke to a lot of people from the UK, and they are optimistic that they can get holidays booked. But I feel like people haven't thought about the greater picture, and that the likes of the French borders are closed at the moment.
So sorry.
Sorry about that. The French borders are closed, the Austrian borders are closed and stuff, and so we don't actually know when that will happen that these guys will open back up again. And so I don't think you can be too optimistic at the moment.
Matt, can I take a stab at that one?
Yeah.
I think, and I'm not sure how many holidaymakers actually realise this, but actually with the travel industry in the UK, you can book incredibly safely, in the knowledge that if your holiday is cancelled and if you book with a package tour operator that's regulated under the package travel regulations, then even if that company goes bust, then you will get your money back. And that's guaranteed by the government. So what we know, and all these headlines, as soon as there was a route out of lockdown, there was an incredible demand for holidays. People want to go on holiday. People have been cooped up for 12 months. So, and there's been some confused messaging from the government. It's not illegal to book a holiday at the moment. Full stop, no. Yes, there is always a risk that it might have to get delayed and get cancelled, and we're just going to have to live with that. But the companies in SBIT and the companies that I talk to are ready to take bookings. They will. All of the booking conditions have changed. There's a lot more flexible deposits going down. So yeah, go book. Now's a good time, and there's some good value holidays around at the moment.
Okay, just hang. Okay, I'll come back to that in a second. We've got a couple of things in from Bev and Tim. Milo has posted a comment on YouTube in regards to Brexit. Milo, I have seen that, mate. We will come on to Brexit very soon, mate. So just hold tight with us, and we will deal with it, because I know that you've been asking questions in recent videos. I know you're keen to know. So, I mean, Bev has just said, look, we've booked some hotels on free cancellation for 2001, 2002 season in Austria, but not booked the flights yet till we know what is happening. I think people want something to look forward to, whether or not it might go ahead. And we're all looking forward to getting out of lockdown number 3. Kathy has now also just said, I agree with money being returned if a company goes bust. I had a holiday booked with Alpine Elements, and have received my deposit back from my credit card company. Obviously, for those that recall, Alpine Elements went out of business right at the start of the winter. That was followed soon by VIP Ski, who seem to have, I think, had another lease of life. We've had another comment. They're coming in thick and fast now, actually. Helena says, I've booked 2 Eurotunnel crossings, but it will depend on border crossings, restrictions, and quarantine and testing regime. So I think, like you know, there is confidence, and there are some reasons to be confident, but then there are still, I just think at this stage, it seems like there's still too many variables that are not quite yet clear enough. Just for me, and I know you've said then, Charles, that that holidays are technically not illegal, but you know, it was just the other week that Priti Patel was in the House of Commons slamming skiers that were found at the train station, and influencers coming back from Dubai, and I'm sure I've seen government stuff on social media that says it is legal, you know, you shouldn't really be leaving your house unless you're some sort of, you know, as far as I'm aware, you're not allowed to travel. You're not allowed to leave your own home at the moment.
Yeah, that's correct. The law says that you're not allowed to spend a night outside of your own house unless for valid reasons. And certainly at the moment, holidays are not those. But there's a big difference between going on holiday and looking forward and booking a holiday, which is not illegal. And I think everybody at the moment is looking for wants something to look forward to. And whether that's a ski holiday or a holiday in the sun, then yeah, and as I said, there's some fantastic deals around. So that bit of it is not illegal, no matter what the government might be saying. And there's some confused messages coming out from the government at the moment on that.
Alex, have you got any thoughts on this? Sorry, go on, Rob.
Sorry.
Sorry, Alex, you carry on.
No, I thought I'd just ask the question, but I'd lost the connection for a second.
No, I was just going to say that since this announcement earlier in the week about the June date when everything's going to apparently open up, everyone on my Facebook's gone crazy about what they're going to do. So there's a tremendous amount of optimism, and I suppose people are thinking that by next November, December time, things will have started to open up. So people want to book holidays and have something to look forward to then. And yeah, I think there's a lot of variables, as you've said, going forward to that time. But fingers crossed, things will be in place to be able to have a safe holiday at that point.
Listen, we
Alex,
do hope
what was
that obviously it goes ahead, because if holidays can go forward, then the travel industry and the ski industry are going to have a massive year next year and next season, and that's all we can hope for at the moment. And so yeah, hopefully it does kind of ease up a little bit.
Alex, what was your question?
Oh, just then.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Okay, Andy. Sorry, Andy, you were about to say something then.
Yeah, I've got a question for the girls, and I've just got some on this. It's going to be busier than busy next year, because everyone is saying, not us, not we are not saying this, but everybody out there is saying it's going to be crazy next year. It's going to be so busy. Well, it can only be as busy as the number of beds that are available, and the number of beds that are available aren't going to increase massively unless somewhere they go and build millions of hotels. No,
I think hopefully we mean busy compared to this year.
There hasn't been a this year, has there? But everyone's saying it's going to be so busy, but it can't be any busier than the busiest week.
It's like what we were talking about, like on the last podcast. We've got a friend who recently bought a chalet company, and we were talking to him about how terrifying it is to have just bought a chalet company at this time. And he was saying that they've booked out pretty much 75% of next year. So I think it's more the optimism that we're seeing these bookings come in thick and fast.
Yeah. And I'd agree, because I'm sending out offers every day, multiple offers, and I've got more bookings at the moment for next year than I would normally have at this time of the year for next year. But so I'm not talking about.
And also, I know certainly that my company, we are looking to take on more properties than we would normally take on, because the demand is there for it. And so there are companies that have maybe stepped out of resort, and so we are kind of stepping up and hopefully taking on those properties that have been dropped by other companies. And so hopefully the demand is there. And if maybe some other companies could have just hung on, then yeah, I think next year their numbers could be up, because there's some companies that may only sell 50% occupancy in one season. But actually, if they had turned around and got 100% occupancy next season, then that is a bumper year for them.
But I mean,
yeah, I think a lot of. I was going to say,
sorry,
Matt,
Rob.
I think from a tour operator's perspective, a lot of the capacity next year is people being shifted from this year. So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
it's very much a case in the same way as the hospitality industry here. People are like, oh, all the pubs are going to open up again, and they're all going to be really busy. You guys have still lost out on 12 months of income that you will never get back. So
yeah.
So no matter how busy it is or how you are, and the same with weddings, like the wedding industry and all of that sort of stuff, there's just this huge chunk of time and income that's gone.
Yeah, and also obviously, I mean, you guys, there's a couple of points there that are right. Is that okay, like you might have bookings for next year, and they might be at 80% or whatever, but yeah, that doesn't mean okay, well, your monetary troubles are now sorted, because you have got 12 years of black hole in income that you've got to sort out. And I think, Rob, you've touched on a really, really good point, which I would link back to this sort of bizarre announcements that are coming out every time there is an update from UK COVID restrictions, which is they come out and say that there's been this increase in bookings. And my first question is, all right, well, how much of that is actually bookings that have been moved over from last year? Because there was all this fuss that we had at the end of last year with, as you touched on, Charles, the mass evacuation, and there was an adjusting period, but eventually people who started to get all their money back, how much of that was actually people just moving their holidays forward to 2021 to 2022? And also, this may sound a bit skeptical, but how much of this news of you know, oh, we've had an increase in bookings. How much of that is just to please big shareholders, you know, big investments in, you know, in the companies? Because really all these new bookings mean nothing, surely, if it comes to October, November time next year, and let's say France is still dealing with 10,000 cases a day. Italy has had a resurgence and has not rolled out its vaccine program fully yet, you know, and then there's quarantine restrictions still in place.
What was the question?
Anyone want to have to say that?
Yeah. Look, I think by next winter season, and I think, to be honest, by probably the back half of the end of summer this year, the world is going to have to work out how it lives with COVID. And because this cannot go on. We've now had 12 months of lockdown. And look, I'm not somebody that says, hey, you just finished lockdown. We are learning more about COVID every day. We are learning what the real risks are and how to avoid them. The vaccine is playing a part in that. I've always reckoned, and I was saying this since March last year, that by about August, September of 21, the world will have found a way of adjusting and coping. And I think that will be the same with ski resorts. We will find a way of being able to be open and carry on doing what we do. I think we have to, because I don't think that if we have another completely closed season, there are money companies with deep enough pockets to survive it, including the lift companies.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I think even the likes of Maribel Alpina would struggle massively if it did not go ahead next season.
Yeah, and I already know, obviously, in France and Italy, where the struggles have probably been the hardest, you know, you guys have not sat back and taken this lightly. You know, I've seen the protests in all of the countries. So, you know, if it comes around again next year and there isn't anything, no doubt that there will be things said about it. So I want to just start shifting the conversation now towards next year, and also talking about it from the work perspective. I did just highlight Milo's comment that we will start to feed into Brexit. But final thing on this, and Alex, this is kind of directed more to you, because obviously you speak a lot with the seasonaires and the. What do you think have been the challenges for seasonal workers this year, having not been able to work? And girls, chime in as well.
I think that there's definitely a lot of people that I've spoken to have just sort of been off and gone and found stuff that they can do in the UK. There's a lot of people because of all the uncertainty, and I guess it's the same as the uncertainty and that comes for the businesses that are employing them. It's like, is the season going to go ahead? Do I make this plan or do I make that plan? And not knowing what to do, and then not knowing. I mean, I was due to go to Maribel on the 29th of December, and I wasn't sure. And then I was like, oh, do I go? And then I had a tenancy agreed with some guys to go in the Frass, which the girls will know, and potentially Charles will know as well. I guess that's it's stressful to think about that on an individual level. But I guess that's a lot of people have gone just figured it out. We are a breed of people who go and figure out how to deal with situations.
Yeah, I agree. I think, you know, it is the same troubles that the rest of the world are facing. I took a big risk and decided to come out because I was meant to have chalet work and cleaning work this season. And luckily, I am a freelancer, and this summer I decided to take it on full time. So, like, I'm super lucky that I did that, and I can just pay my rent. But it is, you know, it is a huge risk, and it is trying to get by every month, figuring out how you're going to pay rent without those normal season air jobs that you would have.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I'd be stressed if I was in France at the moment and didn't know where.
I certainly think if I was back home, and I got offered a job back home over coming out for a season, I'd have probably stayed at home. Yeah, just for the certainty. Yeah, just for the. Yeah.
Right. We're going to move on to topic number 2, which is Brexit. And this has been, for those of you who have supported the channel and been following videos since, whenever actually, to be honest, because it's been one of the most biggest things that people want to know about. Let's just put it in context now with this little video I've got to show. And that is just some of the many comments that people have had on this channel wanting to know. Rob is getting himself another drink there, I believe. It was,
Thank God that's what he was doing.
do you want me to play it again? And
That could have been so much worse.
Was that it?
Oh dear. Right, listen, guys, we have a deal. A Brexit deal is done. It seems to have sort of just slipped under the radar a bit because of everything that's gone on with the pandemic and all the restrictions. But it does actually create some certainty in this period of uncertainty. But let's answer Milo's question directly. And he just says, look, do you think there is a future for British seasonaires post-Brexit in European ski resorts?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think
Good.
from mine and Alex's view, it's a big thing since we've started the podcast. It's probably the biggest question we've had. Will I be able to come out again and do a season that's all I've wanted to do, or is meant to come out this season? And we touched on it. We actually had a big talk about it. We will. It's not getting a visa to work in a different country isn't something that we haven't come across before. Alex has done it numerous times. It's just a little bit harder than what we're used to. And I think that's something that is creating this fear. It's the fear of the unknown, of something that we haven't done before. But like we keep saying, the people that are asking us is, if you want to do it, you just got to try and push it, work a little bit harder to get that visa. I know it's okay.
I think it's definitely going to be harder for companies to employ. I get that from the SBIT point of view. I definitely do get that. But I mean, if you really want something, you will kind of go out there and get it. And I guess we're in a lucky point of view just now where we're both currently applying for our French residency and stuff at the moment. So we will be able to hopefully continue on our seasonaire kind of journey out here. But yeah, I mean, hopefully things change and it is a bit easier for companies to start to employ people from the UK again.
We understand that's, one of the big things, but again, optimism.
Girls, just talk me through that process, because I spoke with Harry in my last video, and he's based in Valmounier, and I know he's been in France for a very long time, but this was sort of the thing that he was looking at also, is to sort of try and ensure that he can do the things he wants to do. Living in the mountains was about trying to find out residency. So what have you gone about doing with that so far?
It's quite a long process. It can be. You have to provide quite a lot of your things to provide, like to basically prove that you reside in France. So you need to have work contracts. You need to have tenancy agreements. You need to have bills in your name. You need to have French, you need to have health insurance. It is quite a lengthy process, but it's not unmanageable.
Yeah,
it's not impossible to do.
So would you expect to be working there in the summer as well as the winter then?
So I am employed on a full-time basis. So I work year-round with the company that I work for. But yeah, so I probably will. We don't actually run an operation in the summer, but there's lots to do. And as an area manager, you probably know what it's like in summer. There's still bits and bobs kind of hanging around and to be done.
I go to summer places in the summer. So.
Well, I mean, it is a summer place here in the summer, but yeah, I mean, I usually tidy up kind of operational stuff out here in the summer. And there is always, if we have a summer like we had last summer, which fingers crossed we do, which is one of the busiest summers Maribel's ever had, then yeah, there'll be tons of work for us to do in the summer. Go on, Charles.
Go on, Charles.
Okay, so there's 3 categories of potential UK people seasonaires that we're talking about, and the rules are very different for those 3. First of all, just big shout to Kathy. I'm with you every time I talk about Brexit. I try to have a drink first.
Yeah.
I've been living this stuff for 4 years. I set up ESPIT because on the night of the referendum, I didn't sleep and knew instantly that this was an existential threat for the whole UK outbound ski industry, and potentially could bring an end to something which I did. I did 6 years back-to-back seasons. I lived in La France 1 year. And I knew it was a massive challenge. So back to these 3 categories. First category is UK people that are already in France and decided or were in France before the 31st of December last year and have decided that they want to carry on residing in France. For those people, when there's a fair few of them, then yes, you can apply under withdrawal agreement for a temporary carte séjour, which is a residence permit in France for either 5 or 10 years. If you get that, and also while you're applying for that, you are legally allowed to work and to take work. But fundamentally, you're saying that you want to live in France now, not the UK. So that category, absolutely fine. Second category is UK people that have dual passports and have EU passports. You will be absolutely fine working in the ski industry. The third category is slightly more problematic, and this is new UK seasonaires or people that aren't resident or don't have EU passports. And this is where it gets tricky because you need a few things. First of all, you need a job. And I say that because the mainly UK outbound tourism industry needs to find a solution for how they're going to actually do the staffing. Otherwise, they aren't going to have the jobs to give you to work a season out there. Once a company has decided, yes, they want to run a chalet, they want to run a British bar or something like that, and they'll offer you the job, then they need to go through the process. And it's the company that goes through the process, not the individual. First of all, the company, and I'm taking France as the example. It is slightly different in in other European countries. Some may be easier, but I'll come to that in a bit. In France, the company needs to advertise the role on a French unemployment site for 8 weeks to prove that no French person can do that job. Once they've done that, the company has to apply for a work permit. It's a 17-page paper form. You apply to, if you're in the Savoie, the local prefecture, like the local council office in Albertville. And then there is one part-time person that processes these. They normally get a handful of these for a year because it very rarely happens. We've been talking regularly with the Albertville office, and when we sat down and said, look, given that we need work permits for the British workers, we're likely to send you as an industry 7,000 to 8,000 work permits. They nearly fell off their chair. It takes about 3 or 4 months to process a work permit, this one part-time person who's now been reassigned to other stuff because of COVID. The practicalities then of actually getting the amount of work permits through the system start to become logistically very, very challenging, which is why in ESPIT, we're working very closely with Albertville to see what we can do to actually potentially make this easier. Then once you've got your work permit, or the company's got the work permit, then the member of staff needs to go to an embassy in the UK and get a visa to allow them to enter the country. It's only at that point they can enter the country. So if they do it before any of those things, their passports will be stamped with an entry stamp that doesn't allow them to work and will only allow them to stay for 90 days. So Do I think it's over for UK seasonaires doing for UK workers doing seasonaires? No, because we are a very inventive industry that is good at solving problems. But the problems are real, and the problems are very difficult. We are working very well with the French authorities to try and find a way through this. But at the moment, unless things change, it is going to be very problematic for people that don't have dual passports or aren't applying for B residents to work over in France.
It's surely got to be quite. You've got to remember that this is only within Europe. You can go to Canada, you can go to Australia, you can go to Japan. Like, there are other places that
Andorra.
This is only within Europe.
Oh, completely. But what we did find is that you look at a lot of the operators, they moved to different, when getting visas to go into the US became tricky, they moved to different staffing solutions, and they much more relied on local staff. And I think that's what's going to happen in Europe, unfortunately. Look, I haven't given up. As I say, I set up SBIT, and I've been arguing and trying to find a route through this. But that's where we need to be putting the effort and the attention at the moment, because there isn't an easy solution to this.
Okay, Charles, I want to come back on the points that you've made, and then I'm going to ask Alex for his views and his reaction, and then also go to Andy also, and then get Rob's opinion also. So I'm going to bring up a couple of things which actually I brought up in discussion with Diane when Diane came on from SBIT in the video to discuss with me, and obviously you've talked about potentially 7,000-8,000 workers that we could be bringing to the French Alps alone, potentially more. Well, okay. Where is the evidence to suggest that those roles would be filled by the French? One of the things that Diane explained was that, in the French economy, in the French job market, there is no such thing as a chalet host, as a holiday rep, as a, it's all split by role. So, I mean, one of the things I was bringing up is, look, are we going to see more locals, working in resorts? And that, I mean, I think that could maybe be possible on the likes of bar jobs and everything. But take somewhere like Maribel, for example, where a very large portion of the customers there are British. The British have expectations for customer service, the experiences that they want. And who do operators know that are going to be able to deliver that for those customers? Is British workers, and the British workers are willing to do that. So, adding into that then is that also I've been led to believe by multiple people that actually there are ministers within the Rhône-Alpes, within the Tarentaise Valley, that are aware of actually just how important and significant British businesses and British workers are within that area. So surely they're not going to let those just by the by and try and let them float around in the French job market. And do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, look, I completely see what you're saying. And this is one of the reasons that I founded SBIT, and we're pushing hard for this, because it is clearly in many people's best interest to actually allow this to continue. It's definitely in the local French economies and some of the other local European countries' interests as well to allow this to continue. It's definitely in the seasonaire's interest. It's, in my belief, it's in the ski holiday makers' interest as well. Unfortunately, the politics is not straightforward on this. Although in a lot of the conversations we've had with the French authorities on this, everybody agrees it's in their best interest, and they will always come back and say the same thing. But you voted for Brexit.
Okay.
This is going to hurt you more than it hurts us, is another thing that gets said. It's we need to find a political way through this, because it could be very easy for even though it's in everybody's best interests, for somebody somewhere to say just no, or for just time to run out. because if we don't find a solution with the French authorities fairly soon, then the holiday companies will scale back the amount of chalets they've got because they can't take the risk of not being able to staff and deliver the holidays, and then the jobs go, and then the potential, and next year won't be a bumper season. So it's look, I'm not writing it off. As I said, if the reason I've been investing so much time in SBIT, I think, is we do have a chance, but it's not a slam dunk at all. It is very challenging to do this.
Okay, I mean, all I'll just say there is that I think if President Macron thinks that the Brexit is not going to have a detrimental impact to tourism and income from that within his French Alps, I think he's living on a different planet. But obviously, having not opened the lifts this year.
It's not really about that. And remember, there are large amounts of, say, French hotels that would dearly love, actually, for the chalet operation not to continue, because they think, I think mistakenly, that all of the Brits would rebook and actually go and stay in their hotels. So it's not in everybody's interest. I don't think that's the case, and I think there's some phenomenal things about the UK chalet operations. One of the things, from an environmental point of view, we are incredibly effective and efficient of taking planes that have a very high occupancy, arriving at the airport, bringing everybody in on coaches. So instead of 40 individual cars coming in, you'll get one coach coming in. We, as an industry, tend to be very good at filling the low periods, so the January and March periods when the hotels aren't necessarily booked. So there are some really, really strong things, and so we've got a lot of things on our side. It's not straightforward.
Sure, Alex, I want to hear your opinion on this, because I've seen some of the blogs that you've actually written on the Global Season Air website, talking about supply and demand, working visas and mobility schemes. So what's your reaction to all that's just been discussed?
Oh, I think what Charles has just come out and said there, really, really good. I think I'll just I'll be coming to you, Matt, and being like, can I just have this video and re-watch everything that you just said, because it was like so to the point and on the money. I think it's answered everyone's questions, especially about France. So epic, really. I mean, it's not an epic situation, but it's a really, really good answer to all the questions that people are asking. And I also think that you're 100% right. The chalet experience is what people are looking for. They're not. I don't think that you're going to get that many English people being like, "Oh, well, we desperately want to go and stay in a French hotel." So yeah,
right.
I think.
Okay. Well, listen, Andy. You keep cutting out a little bit, mate, but I think we've still got you. We'll come back to you in a second. Rob, what's your view on all of this?
Okay, just going on from what was said just then about sort of hotels needing British people or not needing them. The Dolomites wouldn't notice anyone, wouldn't notice it if Britain didn't turn up next year. But the Susa Valley, my experience there is that's a very much Anglophile area. And they, Sousie Doo is just full of Brits in the winter time. So they're desperate to have the Brits come back next year. And they'd talk to the Italian authorities about that. Just going back to what we were talking about visas, I was looking at this today, actually. I think without any authority that it would be relatively easy to get a visa to work in Italy. I don't think they're as strict as the French are. In terms of that kind of thing. But then going on to a tour operator and who we're going to be employing next year, there's still going to be rep positions as far as I'm concerned. But the other thing that we've had as a consideration over the last few years is our progression towards digitizing everything. And I think that's going to have as much of an impact as well, because it's given us, given tour operators an excuse to just push forward on sticking everything into a digital framework. So we're reducing jobs in that regard as well.
Just to kind of follow on one of the points, because and it is actually a kind of really strong reason about, again, why the model is good. There aren't large quantities of, Dan was completely right. I work very closely with Dan, amazing amounts of respect. She's an incredible lady. There aren't large amounts of French people that want to do the type of chalet jobs that we have a lot of in the industry. As SBIT, a couple of years ago, because we were deeply concerned about this, we were working with the authorities in Albertville, we said, look, can we advertise as SBIT on the Pôle Emploi just to see actually what the demand is for jobs? And we said, look, we will take on anybody that's a successful applicant. So we put up 7,000 job roles on the unemployment office. We got 3 applications back for the whole season. Two of them were spam, and one of them didn't speak any English, so failed at the first CV sift. So 7,000 roles, 0 successful applicants. Now, the situation will be a little bit different after COVID, definitely. But this is certainly an area of industry where there is not enough local employment. And that's one of the big arguments that we're making to try and get a smoother path to get the work permits so that this can carry on. Look, I did 6 winter seasons, the time of my life. Again, one of the main reasons I started SBIT. I want other people to have this opportunity. I started off doing that. Now I run managing director of European Pubs, and there are many of us like in the industry exactly like that.
Listen, you've got a bit of positive. You've got some praise coming your way here, Charles, from Fresh Track Chalet Hosting and Cookery School. They've said, as a chalet host training school, we really appreciate all your efforts through SBIT to try and find a way forward for next season. Chalet hosting is a fantastic opportunity for anyone to do a season, and we really hope it can continue. Well, listen, thanks very much, Fresh Tracks, for putting in your comment there. Again, guys, if you are watching right now, feel free to keep those comments coming in, those questions. Let us know where you are. Yeah, it's really great to have you watching. I want to go to Austria, though, because obviously I've got a bit of a personal interest in Austria, maybe ahead to next season. And Andy, you obviously live there and work there. What has been your observations and your take from things from a Brexit standpoint from Austria?
Well, similar to France, that if people were here before the 31st of December for this winter season, then obviously they could stay and they could work. However, there was no work. There's been no work. So that kind of has negated the whole thing of getting in before the 31st of December. We don't yet know, from my understanding, and the other guys might know more than me on this, but from my understanding, we don't actually know what Austria are going to agree for next year. Because again, the agreement of if you were in before the 31st of December, you can work, no problem, will run out on the 31st of December. So what happens for the 1st of January 2022 onwards, we don't actually know, and neither do the BH, which is the office where you would go if you were here now and you want to come back next winter. They don't even know the answer to the question, is what we're being told. So what do we think is going to happen? We think that if somebody from the UK wants to come and work in Austria, it will be, they have to have an offer of employment. The employer has to apply for a permit for them. They have to apply for the permit. And once they both got permits, they can come and work, is what we believe is going to be the process. Just touching on something that was said earlier about dual passports. From my knowledge, you can't have dual passports. You can't have an Austrian passport and another passport. If you have a British passport and you want an Austrian passport, you have to surrender your British passport. So you can have one or the other. You can't be a dual national in Austria, apparently.
Correct, but you could have a UK passport and a French passport, and that would allow you to work in Austria.
Yeah. Because you got a French passport, which is European, then you could work in Austria. Gotcha. Okay, cool. Okay, that makes sense. So anybody who's got an English and French or an English and German, etc., etc. Okay, good. Okay. So we don't really know, and Austria don't seem to know, but that's what we believe it's going to be. It's going to be a work permit scenario, and 90 days within 180. They will only be able to work 90 days within 180 days, I believe, is going to be part of the criteria. And then the other thing is, end of the day, I can't see that people won't get the permits, because if you take out all of the English ski teachers from the ski schools around Austria, half of the ski schools can't operate. Because Austrians don't want to be ski instructors because the pay's crap. End of chat.
Fair enough.
It's again, this is coming back to, and I don't think it's arrogant. I think it's one of these things that, for the most part, these positions have always been filled by UK workers. So to then have a situation that doesn't enable them to do it, but then you don't have a fail safe that says, well, actually, we can set up a way that means that we know we're going to get Austrians coming in and filling those positions, or we know that we're going to get French coming in those positions. But as you've well just demonstrated, Charles, with your thing there, that no one signed up for that, whether that's because they don't have that role in their job market, or because the wages are crap. I want to touch on the wages, because for all of us that have done seasons, we do widely agree that the wages for British workers are not good. They're not good for the amount of work and the stuff that they put up with. Could you see maybe something now whereby within EU countries that it's not, obviously they have to be on local contracts, and by therefore meaning that the minimum wage has to be higher?
Okay, so again, this is a subject where I think the industry has changed massively over the last 5 years. The old stories of people literally being paid a pittance and given their ski pass and that, although I'm not saying it's completely gone, it's not the majority of the industry. It's not about, for the last 4 or 5 years, it has always been the rule that if you were seconding a member of staff over to work in any European country, you have to abide by the employment regulations of that country, including paying minimum wage. Now, the industry has had an interesting history in this, but one of the things that SBIT has been doing is encouraging to follow the SBIT Code of Compliance, which means that all companies do have to pay the minimum wage in France or Austria and Italy. And not deduct for accommodation and pay for flights over and then the accommodation while you're there. So I think the industry has changed. If you're not doing that as an organisation, you are behaving illegally. And one of the things that I am utterly convinced about is that if we do manage to do a deal with the French, Italians, Austrians on this, then full compliance with local employment regulations such as minimum wage is something the industry is going to have to move to 100%.
Andy, another question, Austria related, from Helen here. Can UK people not apply for a long stay visa to allow them to remain in Austria for 6 months in addition to the Schengen 90 days?
Yes, but it's not a long-term visa as I know it. So what I was referring to just a few minutes ago was if people want to come in for the UK to work a winter season and leave again, so they stay as main residency being England or wherever they live. If they want to move their main residency and become residents of Austria, then once you enter Austria, you have to register with the Gemeinde where you live. After 3 months, you then have to go and register at a different office, and you get a yellow piece of paper, which is basically a long-term residency certificate. I've recently changed my long-term residency certificate, which I've had for 8 or 9 years, into a DAWA, a 10-year DAWA, which I will now change in the coming weeks to Article 50 card, which will be a 10-year Article 50 card. People coming in now, I don't think they get the long-term residency certificate, they would have to apply straight for the Article 50 card, and they would have to tick some boxes which I haven't had to tick because I've been here over 5 years. I didn't need to tick any boxes. I just needed to produce my long-term residency certificate. But they would have to show criminal record check, that they have somewhere to live, that they have an income, that they have job offered, blah, 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 blah. So yes, they can get those things, Helen, albeit I don't think they're called a Visa D. Unless that's the English translation, maybe, I don't know. So yeah, they can do that, but that would be if they want to have their permanent residency in Austria. That would mean that they lose all of their social security rights in the UK. They would, if not employed in Austria, they would have to pay private health insurance. If they are employed in Austria, then their insurance would be paid. And there would be other stipulations like any tax would have to be paid in Austria, etc., etc.
Yeah, listen, guys, we're running out of time at the moment, so I'm gonna quickly round up. Thanks very much, Helen, for that question there. We're gonna go around each of you just to sort of get your final comments on everything. Starting with you, Rob. I mean, what have you taken away from the discussions tonight, and will you be going back out next year?
My plan will be to go and work somewhere in the summer if I get the opportunity to. I'd like to go back to Italy if I can, and certainly I'd like to go back to Italy next winter. I'm cautiously optimistic about how it's all going to work out, but I know there's a great demand for ski holidays next year, so I'm going to take that optimism with me.
Girls.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm just the classic naive optimist, but I've got high hopes for it all. Like, I don't know what else I can do apart from hope that it's all going to get a bit better and that UK seasonaires can hopefully at some point with, you know, like you said, Charles, hopefully the changing of how it all works, can still come over and do seasons and have like the life-changing experiences that we've had. I think I can only stay optimistic or I'll cry.
Alex?
I just think it's mad that what Charles said about putting all the jobs up, 7,000 jobs, listing them all, and only getting three replies. I think if that doesn't say something to all those people looking to get jobs next winter, then I don't know what does. So yeah, I think really good stuff from Charles this evening.
Yeah. Just quickly before Charles, Addy's asked, is the 90-day just for paid employment or could you just work peak season? From what I'm aware, once you're in, you can't then leave and come back in, right?
Do you not get paid for peak season work? Is that not paid employment?
Yeah. Addy, what are you thinking?
Can he work for 90 days?
There's a little bit of confusion here about the 90-day thing. First of all countries are different, and so you've got to understand which country you're talking about. But secondly, as a tourist, you can come in for 90 days, but that's fine. You can just be a tourist. And there are some things of work that you can do that you don't require a work permit for. So as a businessman, you can go over and set up a deal to buy another business or start another product line or something like that. But there's a limited list of exemptions. And again, those are different per country. So don't get confused with just because you can come in for 90 days, you can definitely work. And you've got to look at what's going on in an individual country. So to Alex's question.
Yeah.
Sorry, Charles, am I right in thinking, I don't know if I picked this up in the summer incorrectly or not, but if you, say, for example, got employed by Jack's, just because it's something that you've mentioned before, say, for example, I then decided during that season to quit my job with Jack's, I would not be able to pick up another job. Is that right?
What if that started next season?
Yeah, so say next season I got a job with Jack's, you got my visa and everything sorted. Yeah. If I quit my job, then I wouldn't then be able to pick up a job with a Shelley operator.
That's correct. The work permit is only for the company that's applied for you. You can't. It's on the roll. It's not on you, so you can't transfer that over to another company.
Yeah, this is something we were talking about today here in Austria as well. So if a ski teacher was to get a permit, It would be to be working at a particular ski school. If that ski school then said, we don't need you because it's gone quiet, that is the end. They have to leave. They can't go to another ski school for the remainder of the season.
Yeah.
And this is the other reason why it's problematic for the companies to take the risk on UK staff, because normally you do a season, you've got a chef, they go out, they get a little bit too keen on a black kicker and realise they can't do it, they break themselves, they have to go home. You pick up the phone, you get another chef to come out, they're there within 3 days. Now, you might have a 6-month process to actually get a visa. So it's replacements are another big issue that the industry is trying to deal with.
Listen, guys, this has been incredibly informative. I've really enjoyed everybody's discussions. I hope you guys have enjoyed taking part in it too. I just want to take the time now to say thank you so much for all of you to agreeing to take part. Rob, Alex, Carla, Alex, Charles, Andy, you're all welcome back here anytime. I feel like, you know, with each of you, we could probably do separate ones again and talk about this each for an hour and a half. But what I will do is I will put all the links to your various websites and blogs and so on and podcasts in the links below. So thank you very much for joining. And just as we take these guys out, we're almost done now. But thank you very much to everybody who has watched tonight, who has participated. It's been really great and really enjoyed interacting with you guys. So thank you very, very much. After this video has got done, it will automatically upload to Facebook and YouTube also. But don't forget, guys, to like the video, like the Facebook page, subscribe to the YouTube channel also. If you want to add any further comments after this, please do. I will jump on and try and answer them as best as I can. But for now, guys, look after yourselves all. I hope very, very soon we can be back traveling and back out working in the industry that we all love and very hold dear. So this has been Matt from Bramski Vlogs. Take care, everyone, and I will see you next time.